We're in the business of making agricultural wines, and I think we need to make a distinction right here between agricultural wine and industrial wine. A lot of these vineyards that have these really amazing histories attributed to them also have people with interesting histories. It's not selling the widgets. It's teasing out the stories about these very authentic places and these interesting people, and then being able to share those stories.
Hey, this is Harman Skurnick, and welcome to another episode of Skurnick Unfiltered, where we peel back the layers and get behind the scenes of our favorite wines and winemakers and find out what makes them tick. Today, I'm here with Jamie Schwartz, who is the USA Specialist and Ambassador for all things American here at Skurnick. And you recently sat down with Matt and Sara Licklider, who are the proprietors of LIOCO. They are a fantastic couple who we've known for a very long time. They're based in Healdsburg. Yep. They have a nice tasting room there. Matt got his start in the wine business, I believe, as a sales rep for North Berkeley Imports.
Exactly right.
And he has quite an appreciation as a result of great Burgundy and great wines from France. And I think that informed him in how he created the style of what LIOCO was to become.
That's exactly right. Matt and his original partner, Kevin, found themselves wondering why they couldn't find wine grown in California that had the energy and balance and acidity from the wines that they loved from Europe. And that's the impetus for creating LIOCO.
And they're very well known for making beautiful Chardonnays and Pinot Noirs, but of late they have dabbled in a number of different varieties like Carignan, but Albarino has been quite a hit recently. They also make Sauvignon Blanc and even now a Cabernet.
It's true. They've done small experimental things throughout the history of LIOCO, but we're seeing them really lean into a focus on Mediterranean varieties or other grapes that can thrive in the various different climates that are in California. You know, when you're up in Mendocino, it's all kind of redwood country, but then they're in like the sandy soils of the Sacramento River Delta for this new Albarino. The wine is electric. It's got so much nerve, and, you know, they spoke with our own Raul Perez to get some insight on how to grow that grape.
That's interesting.
It's really exciting that they're continually evolving. Having just referenced Carignan, a quick footnote here. Since we've recorded the episode, Jim McCutchen, the longtime Carignan grower that worked with LIOCO, has recently passed away, and we would like to offer our condolences to his family as well as Matt and Sara.
My condolences as well, and looking forward to learning more about him and his relationship with LIOCO in the episode. So why don't we sit back and listen to your conversation with Matt and Sara Licklider.
Hey everyone, I'm Jamie Schwartz with two dear friends, Matt and Sara Licklider from LIOCO Wines. And, I just want to turn it over to Matt and Sara to kind of talk us through the early days of LIOCO to where we are now, what you've been doing that is unique and different from the status quo of American wines, because that's what LIOCO has been since day one.
Thanks, Jamie. I like the question, and I like the reference to the status quo, because LIOCO was essentially founded to disrupt what was at the time the status quo of California wine. And it was started by a couple of French wine drinkers, and this predates my wife Sara joining the team, who also came with a very similar perspective. But at the time, 20 years ago, the status quo in California were big flavored, high alcohol, oak influenced wines being made largely to appease a couple of critics. And I think my partner at the time, Kevin, and I wondered if it were possible to even make some wines from California soils that provided the same kind of sensory experience that our favorite wines from the classical wine growing regions of Europe did. We wanted to make wines that were bright and fresh, lower in alcohol, higher in acidity, not blown out with oaky flavor. And I think the essence of it was to see if we could make wines that had some evocation of place. And I think at the time, the wines in California were so opulent that the minor notes in the wine, i.e. the terroir expression, if there was one, it was being kind of drowned out by the winemaking artifice. So LIOCO was going to kind of take the winemaking out of the equation. We were going to look for interesting vineyard sites and see if we could make these pulled back, restrained wines from California soils, and hope that the wines, in doing so, were truly singular, and they really did resonate with a specific place and a specific vintage. And for the last 20 years, we've kind of been tussling with that. We're still trying to work out some of those problems. But I think also the original question was, can it be done? And I think what we now know, 20 years into this, not only through the lens of LIOCO, but the myriad producers who are in our camp, the answer is yes. Of course we can do it. It doesn't take a genius to look at this very heterogeneous landscape of California to figure out there is some there. So let's just go find the right spots and plant the right varieties and cultivate the right culture of wine growing, and then let the winemaking follow behind that. And yes, we will eventually make wines that rival the best wines in the world from this extraordinary place that we call home.
Yeah, especially where we are in Northern California, because I didn't move to Northern California until 2013. When you get there and you understand the ecological diversity, the huge nature, it's the Pacific Ocean, it's the massive drops into the Pacific Ocean where there's great white sharks, and then it's huge redwood trees that you've heard about your whole life, and there they are, even bigger than you imagine them. And there's bald eagles, and it's truly wild. It's funny because we have all these maps on our labels, but they're still charting out the area. I mean, there's new AVAs happening every year. We just discovered a new AVA, a place we had never even really been. And it's exciting when you realize that there's still so much actual wild land there. A lot of places and people there, they don't want to be discovered. In fact, to be careful.
Yeah, a lot of off-the-grid situations, homesteading and things that, we don't really come across that on the East Coast.
No, it's just, some of the growers we work with, they're straight out of Central Casting. When you get to their property, you have to rewind the clock. There's still a barter system in some places.
Yeah. Talk more about the farmers you work with. What's that relationship like?
The farmer part, the grower part of what LIOCO is involved with has become, I think, really the soul of the winery, because we don't have any of our own vineyards. We rely exclusively on other estates for our raw material. And what we have found over the last 20 years of getting lost all over the wilds of California is that a lot of these vineyards that have these really amazing histories attributed to them also have people with interesting histories. Some of them are very regionally minded. They don't leave their zip code.
It's provincial,
right? It's
provincial, which
correct.
is not something we think about in modern day, I think.
Exactly.
Very often.
That's right. Yeah. It's a very foreign concept, especially sitting here in New York. But it's such a privilege to get to know people who, I think we regard as frontiersmen farmers with these amazing family histories, who are these incredible custodians of these wild vineyards. And I think ultimately that's become the more satisfying aspect of what we do as a négociant producer. It's not selling the widgets. It's teasing out the stories about these very authentic places and these interesting people, and then being able to share those stories.
Do you have a specific anecdote or grower or something, bottle?
Jim McCutchen Ranch behind our sativa Carignan. He planted the vineyard with his father.
Hand planted it.
Yes, hand planted the vineyard in the 60s.
Early 60s.
Yeah. He's been farming it himself ever since. Every year we're worried about his health and is Jim going to be okay? Because he has children who are not going to be assuming the farm. Jim is still out every year leafing the bins.
We call him indefatigable. If you look that word up in the dictionary, as a picture of Jim McCutchen.
Yeah, a couple years ago, he was trampled by a cow and broke, I think, his leg and his arm. And we were just beside ourselves because I was like, oh my God,
is he going to make it?
Is this it?
Yeah.
He's 90 at this age.
Yeah.
He was back the next year, didn't miss a beat.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then his wife told me when he broke his leg and his arm, and I was like, did you take him to the hospital? She says, well, no, he came back to the house and he told me he wanted a sandwich. He was hungry. So she said, I made him the sandwich and he ate the sandwich. And then I said, I think we need to go to the hospital.
Characters, right? Characters we probably wouldn't sit next to at the bar here in Lower Manhattan. You would never meet people like the McCutchens, They also invited us to their house once, and on the wall they had a framed land deed for their property that was signed by Ulysses Grant.
Oh my gosh.
So the story behind that was Jim's grandfather was some kind of senior officer in the Union Army, and after the war, a lot of the officers were given big tracts of land out west, and that's how that ranch began. We're drinking our 2023 Sonoma County Chardonnay here, and this comes from some non-contiguous ranches all owned by one family. The family name is Balletto. He's actually been in the New York Times recently a couple times. John Balletto is his name. And his family history is they were zucchini farmers in the Russian River Valley right up until the first major drought happened in the 90s. And they quickly realized that zucchinis required an enormous amount of water to bring them to market. And the drought gave them pause about the future of growing zucchinis. And they thought, well, what could we grow here that didn't need a lot of water? And so in went the vitis vinifera and out went the zucchinis. It's been such a pleasure to work with John because he's just a real community leader. He takes incredible care of what is a full-time labor crew. They live there, they work there. He found out that a lot of his workers were really into baseball. And on their day off, they would go to the park and organize these pickup baseball games. So he had the idea, why don't we build a baseball diamond on the property? It's a field of dreams situation. They carved out of the Chardonnay vineyard a full baseball diamond, and it turns into a baseball park every weekend.
No way.
Yes. So
that's amazing.
It's fun, and that story is not totally unique. Every one of our wines comes with a story like that. And that almost has become, I think, our measuring stick. We might like a vineyard, but if there's not some story behind the vineyard that really grabs us, we may or may not move forward with it. Quality is of primary importance when we're talking about sourcing a new vineyard, but if it's a boring story or that we don't really jive with the people, we may not move on that. How do we continue to make distinctions between what's in the bottle here and a ready-to-drink canned beverage at the grocery store that's made by a corporation versus this comes from John Balletto's ranch, a guy who takes care of his people, a guy who's a community leader, a guy who's a great father, and has helped a lot of other young winemakers around him. It's different. So yeah, the people and the places and the stories are all really intertwined into what LIOCO does.
We're enjoying a glass of Sonoma Chardonnay right now. Chardonnay Pinot is a big part of the production, but you also just referenced McCutchen Ranch. That's Carignan. And my first introduction to LIOCO was actually the Indica Red based on Carignan as well. So walk us through where LIOCO is right now as far as Chard, Pinot, Carignan, other. There's a lot of other, I think. So fill us in, tell us the latest.
We make 26 different SKUs now. I think the question is why? Why make so many SKUs at such a small scale? Every accountant would tell you do the exact opposite. Make a few SKUs at bigger scale, and then you get some economy there. The reason is because I think we're still wine geeks, and we're still really interested in all the wines, all the flavors. And we happen to work in a place that affords us maximum flexibility in terms of what we do. For example, if we were winemakers in the Loire Valley, we would be limited to a very small number of grape varieties. But working in California, especially as a négociant producer, we can basically do anything we want. And I think part of what's exciting about California right now, California wine, is the fact that winemakers everywhere have the courage to plant whatever grape varieties that they're passionate about. So you can get anything from Assyrtiko to Falangina to Lagrein, Schiava, Gamay Noir, all the fighting varieties, of course. The portfolio of wines from LIOCO has grown alongside our own curiosities about what's possible and what we're also drinking at home. I think I shared that with you before. If LIOCO is going to bottle it, Sara and I have to have been drinking that wine at home. Our newest wine is right now some Albarino from out in Clarksburg in the Sacramento River Delta. Another incredible family history, multi-generational Italian family that were growing walnuts and pears and put in some vitis vinifera. And for whatever reason, the father, a patriarch of the family, had the foresight to plant these very vigorous, acid-retaining, heat-tolerant white grapes. I don't know how he had such foresight so long ago, but he did. So why would LIOCO all of a sudden pivot from a Chard Pinot house to making Albarino? It's not because we're chasing the trend. It's because this summer we probably crushed 3 boxes of Albemarle Albarino at home.
Well, because we can't afford Burgundy.
There is that. There is that.
Also, we're not pivoting. We're just adding. We're a Burgundian house, first and foremost.
For sure,
But
for sure.
we have a lot of fun with the other category.
I mean, I think that's like the most perfectly American or California thing, too. We don't have centuries of wine tradition, but we also don't have centuries of wine law.
Right.
And so we're not necessarily hamstrung by said tradition either. And it allows for this like Wild West, like this exploration, this very, like you said it earlier, frontiersman. Like, I think it's awesome to be able to do both.
Yes,
Right?
totally.
It is.
And do it well. That's not an easy thing to accomplish, but
Well, especially now with climate change really driving the conversation around that. It's not just about satisfying curiosities about what's possible in California. It's about what is truly going to be sustainable. Our commitment to Chardonnay in our region, in the Russian River Valley, we probably will see a time as vintners where it becomes too warm to make our kind of Chardonnay in our home region. And I think we're going to see a lot of Pinot Noir following suit. Chardonnay and Pinot is going to leave the Russian
And I
River.
will shed tears on that day.
Yeah, it's going to be a sad day, but it also will open the door to new opportunities. You know, maybe 30, 40 years out from now, they will find is, oh my God, who knew that the Russian River Valley was Grand Cru quality for Cabernet Sauvignon?
would that be what you would move over to? Like, I mean, because that's kind of my automatic follow-up question is like, where would you go?
I mean, I think what we're seeing is, I think Cabernet already is in a very small scale being done successfully in the Russian River Valley. But I think what's more interesting are sort of the Mediterranean varieties, Certico, Falanghina, all the Italian white varieties, basically. Yeah. Maybe some of the Greek ones, maybe some of the Spanish ones. But, you know, we have to look to Europe, similar latitude, similar microclimate and soils. You know, the physiology of the vine itself is also really important. We're learning this by working out in the Lost Slough vineyard in Clarksburg. One of the reasons I think they planted these extremely vigorous high-acid white grapes is because they're vigorous and they produce these enormous canopies, which act like a shade-bearing canopy, and then the cluster drops underneath the canopy and is protected from the worst aspects of the sun. In Napa, a very famous grower, Mark Neal, mostly known for organically farmed Cabernet on Howell Mountain, he has now planted Fiano, Vermentino, one other Italian white grape I'm forgetting, Falanghina, alongside Cabernet. Actually, he told me about it at a trade show. This is pretty interesting. He is pergola training the white grapes up high and planting low bush vines underneath. The Cabernet is now shaded from the pergola trained white grapes. It's also very high density plantings which pencil for the farmer, because we also have to figure out how do we create more economy of scale for the grower so that the fruit prices come down, right? If he can get 10 tons to the acre off these very high density upstairs, downstairs plantings, that starts to trickle down.
Or in New York City.
Right.
Upstairs, downstairs is key to the equation,
That's the
right?
dream.
Like,
I think that is, though, the key is that as we keep moving into the future, it's going to be a constant pivot. I mean, every aspect of the wine business is a pivot right now, like except for the dirt. Still the dirt, thank God. I feel like that's the only
rooted to
constant.
the ground.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
But I think it's going to have to be just constant changing the way you were thinking. South facing? No. North facing.
Right.
Upstairs? No. Downstairs. You know, whatever it was, you have to be open to the change. So I think it's going to be a very interesting time to be part of and to watch and to lead.
And California will be leading the charge in that regard.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Right? So it's important, and it's going to be a fun ride, I think, to be along.
Well, hopefully. There could be some bumps in the road.
Well, we're fortunate. We can pick up and move. We can move out of where we're currently buying grapes and move north and west closer to the ocean if we need to, because it's gotten too warm. There's a certain elasticity to our winery model that estates do not have.
Right.
And we like that. We really see that as a, because people often ask us, when are you guys going to buy your own vineyard? You know, and I think there were some years, maybe 10, 12, 13 years into it where we were like, you know, yeah, we're still working on that. We're trying to figure out where and the economics of it. I think at this point, we're perfectly content not to do that.
Yeah, I think it's easy to romanticize that. Like, oh, the estate and there's the vineyard dog and, you know, there's all the things. But what we've realized is just how dynamic our current Negos project is and how happy we are with it. It's just super rewarding. We get to work with so many different places, so many different people, so many different varietals. It's pretty exciting.
There's this other part of now being 20 years old where in the early years, we used to spend so much of our time trying to chase down new vineyard sources. And there was a time where the best sources it was very competitive. Everybody was kind of going after the same stuff. And the fruit market has changed and softened quite a bit. But I think also being 20 years old, having a reputation for taking care of fruit, paying our bills, being storytellers, getting the wines placed in prestige locations, now that stuff's starting to come back upstream at us. And it's very hard to say no. This year, someone offered us what I think of as like Grand Cru quality Chardonnay grapes from Occidental, which is like the holy grail, very impenetrable to LIOCO up until this year. We've long wanted to make wine from Occidental. Very hard to find a willing grower. And if you
Meanwhile, we need Chardonnay grapes right now, like we need a hole in the
right,
head.
Exactly. We do not need another Chardonnay vineyard. We took one look at this vineyard. The gate to the kingdom opened. We walked through it and we signed a contract literally with like our boots in the soil of that vineyard. We were so mesmerized by what we saw out there. And
there was 2 horses on property, so I was like, I'm in.
Horses were roaming. The trees were swaying. There were eagles in the sky. And we weren't on mushrooms. I mean, this was like really happening in real life. But I think those kinds of opportunities are now starting to avail themselves to us in a way that encourages us to take a risk. And a risk for us will be to buy 2 tons of that fruit. We're not talking about making wine at big scale. That's another nice thing, the way we're set up. We can make very small lots of a bunch of different things, and nobody gets hurt. It's not too risky for us to do so. So, coming to a theater near you, Zephyr Farms Chardonnay from Occidental.
I know that vineyard as a vineyard designate from John Raytek from Saratos, which there's history there for you all. Maybe a quick shout out for John, but also a quick shout out for your current winemaker, Drew.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Drew's been crushing it.
Yeah, we've been really fortunate. I think to just peel another layer off that before we zero in on that, LIOCO has always been a very collaborative project. Kevin and I originally, and Sara and I today, none of us have any winemaking or wine growing pedigree. Like you guys, we were humble servants in the hospitality world who fell in love with wine and kind of committed ourselves to learning more about how to become producers of it. Sara and I never call ourselves winemakers. I would say we're vintners. We always relied on the collaborations with a winemaker, with an enologist, with a viticulturalist, and then all the other people that have contributed to LIOCO over the years, be them designers and webmasters, salespeople, all the things, right?
Yeah. I mean, what other business starts with geology? Then we go to viticulture and farming. Then we go to science and enology. Then we go to packaging and marketing. Then we go to sales. Then we go to hospitality. And then layer in education through the entire thing. And what
art,
other
and art.
business?
And art, right.
Yeah, and art. So you'll spend your whole life never being an expert at maybe even one of those things.
Yeah.
In the wine business, you're trying to know enough about all of them. And so you always have to bring other people into the fold. And so I think we rely on our palates and now a lot of knowledge and experience. But yes, it's always been a collaboration in all of those different compartments.
And we've worked with some amazingly talented people over the years, winemakers especially. As you alluded to, John Raytek was our winemaker for 5 or 6 years. And we hired Drew in 2017.
Sorry, I'm pouring my husband some more wine because he drank it all.
Yeah.
23, there you go. 23 is very crushable. 12.5% alcohol, fully ripened Chardonnay picked in mid-October. That is what we aspire to every year.
Right.
But Mother Nature oftentimes has other plans for us, right?
Yeah, I think that just getting into the vintages too is an interesting question because I think there's wineries that try to make the same wine every year.
Right.
This is the style. This is what we're doing. This is the formula. It's fairly dogmatic. And sure, there's something to be said for consistency. But I think back to everything we've been talking about, like we are working with Mother Nature. We're not in charge. She is.
We're in the business of making agricultural wines, and I think we need to make a distinction right here between agricultural wine and industrial wine. Okay? So industrial wine tastes the same every year because they're using the mechanisms of industry to achieve that goal. Agricultural wine, just like strawberries and tomatoes, are different every harvest.
Yeah.
So the fact that our wines may taste different year to year is not something we are retreating from or trying to mitigate or talk around it. We lean into that.
Yeah.
You kind of ride a little bit with the chaos. This is part of the wild adventure of making wine in California, which you've heard me say. I think it's the most dynamic, most extreme wine growing region in the world right now. So every year is going to be different. 23 was perfect. 24 was also very good, but very different than 23. And 25 was like something no one's ever seen before. And the 10 vintages behind that also had their own very distinctive personality. I think that is on brand for California wine.
You did give 23 the perfect vintage score, so I have to ask, what does perfection mean to LIOCO?
Wines are like human beings, right? No one's perfect. And they're living and they're breathing and they're subjective. And then it's like your body chemistry. How are you interacting with a wine?
Yeah.
Is it perfect
Yeah.
for you that day? You know,
I think about that all the time.
Yeah.
Like, if I've had my best glass of wine, are the other people drinking this bottle also having that same, like,
Right.
this is the best bottle of wine I've ever had
Probably not.
experience? No.
right.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It's just like your pheromones and like all
Yeah.
the things.
Yeah.
It's like, it's all like coming together. But I don't know that for LIOCO, like perfection is necessarily the goal. I think what we're really trying to do is give a true window into the place, true expression of the vineyard, a true expression of the varietal without too much intervention. I know that's like a buzzword, but I think when we do that, the wine is balanced. I do think balance is what even brings that
It's the North Star.
word up.
Right.
It is, right? Because it's like if the phenolics and the acid and the pH and the alcohol, everything's aligned and nothing is sticking out. Because when something's sticking out in a wine, that takes over the conversation, that takes over the palate.
Yeah.
Oh, it's kind of oaky. There's like no fruit, or you know, whatever it is.
The
you're
negative
noticing.
does show.
Yeah.
The negative becomes the conversation
Mm-hmm.
versus this hits. This is hitting so hard. I want another glass, and can we get another bottle? And I want to get a case for home.
Yeah.
You know, you're like chasing it.
Yeah.
And you're chasing it because of all the things we've talked about, what's happening in your body or whatever, but you're also really chasing it because it's in balance. And I think when you've shepherded it, shepherded it, you know, into the bottle and then into the glass in a way where the vineyard and the varietal are shining through and it is in balance, then you've done your job.
And you just said something though, like, and this is like a question, like Paul Greco would have just heard that and said, okay, Sarah, what if a wine is perfectly in balance, but it fails to deliver on its regionality? Is it still perfect? You know, because what comes up for me is I've had wines that are balanced that I'm still bored of. Because yes, it's balanced, nothing's sticking out, but it just is rather innocuous. It's not delivering me to its place of origin. So for me, if it doesn't take me on a journey somewhere, I'm bored.
Yeah,
I don't want to keep drinking it. I don't care how balanced it is.
Well, and usually complexity has something to do with that, right? Like if it's one dimensional, you're bored.
Yeah.
You know, it also like, does it go with food? Very, very important.
Yeah.
For me, is it accentuating the food? And is it clean? Have to go there too,
Yeah.
because like if there's a microbial load in the wine, again, back to something sticking out. You know, is
Yeah.
it just a tiny bit of VA and it's making it interesting? Fantastic. Are you like, this is totally microbial? Then no, the vineyard and the varietal, the typicity is not coming through.
Matt, you talked about agricultural versus industrial wines. And to me, the microbial aspect and the agricultural aspect are both still what are probably in the realm of what people think natural wine are.
Right.
And that's the thing that is appealing to me about natural wine. The farming and the sense of place and all of these very important things. And the negative in the wine world to me is the industrial.
Yeah.
And that's what I think we all are trying to get to right now, whether you're more classically minded or more natty. We're all in the same boat here,
Yeah.
right? Like we are attempting to, I think, make wines of place, share wines of place, tell stories, you know, that's what I want to champion. And I think you all do that very well. And I think the balance of those things
Well, that's the key.
is the key.
Because even, I mean, Sarah said microbial load, referencing it as if it were a negative concept. And I think we would both say,
If you notice it, then yeah.
exactly that. There's a microbial load in this wine. It's just not so dominating the profile of the wine that that's what's sticking out. I think microbial load out of balance is no different than reduction out of balance, whole cluster fermentation on Pinot Noir out of balance, oak, lees stirring, myriad ways that something can stick out and dominate a wine. Volatile acidity. I mean, I've had noble Barolo and Barbaresco from very important producers. For me, the VA was a little too elevated in such a way that I was having to work around the VA to get to where I wanted to go with the wine, right? The wine's out of balance. I don't care whose name it says on the label, right? And we'll play by the same rules. So there's room for all of that in wine. The VA, Brett, and lactobacillus and things like that in small quantities, it's like the perfumery, and it complicates it in a very appealing way. It's the same thing with wine. As long as things are in balance, as long as the expression of the vineyard, the place, the vintage are out in front of all of that other stuff, the right microbial load in an otherwise clean wine takes it to the next level.
For the most part, you want to make sure that transparency, typicity is shining through. If a wine's perfect for me, it's because I'm chasing it.
Right.
All the stars have aligned, and it's in balance, and it feels good.
Like Albemarle Albarino, for example. We chased it so hard, California went out of stock. We couldn't find it anywhere in California, so we started making our own. It's kind of the same thing here. It's like we can't really afford to drink a lot of the wines from Chablis and Burgundy that we used to enjoy. So we started to make some of our own. I'm sort of half joking. We don't often get high on our own supply, but I told you, Jamie, we've been drinking a lot of Sonoma County Chardonnay.
It's good.
It slaps.
23.
It really does.
This was so awesome to spend a day with you two and hear about the last 20 years at LIOCO. I think we covered maybe 20 years ahead of time too. 2045
Right.
vintage, we're going to run this back. And I can't wait to hear what's happened. But thank you both for being here. Thank you for being great stewards and friends.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, Jamie.
Pleasure.
Skurnik Unfiltered is recorded at Skurnik Wines and Spirits headquarters in the Flatiron District of New York City. If you found the conversation interesting, please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a review. You can stay up to date on our show and upcoming events by following Skurnik Wines on Instagram and visiting our website at skurnik.com.